Hello, my name is Elena Peterson, and I'm from Elkhorn, Nebraska. I am currently student teaching at Arborview Elementary in Elkhorn, Nebraska. I am student teaching right now. I was in special education my first 10 weeks, and now I'm in second grade in an inclusion classroom. So I'm first going to go over my theme, which is structured learning environments. This has been a core value throughout my student teaching and practicum experiences. My guiding questions are, how can I promote a safe learning environment for all students? Number 2, what strategies can I use to help my students be successful in the classroom? And number 3, what is the relationship between classroom structures and student learning? So that then led me to my competency statement, which is I am competent at using a variety of classroom management strategies to increase engagement, decrease those distractions, and manage behaviors. So I will come back to that throughout my presentation. I will first go over when I was incompetent, to when I was approaching competency, and to now how I am competent. And then I will go over and synthesize my project, and then go into my reflection and limitations and future. So my first piece of evidence is a reading lesson. This was one of the first reading lesson plans that I'd ever written. I was at a practicum at Elliott Elementary. I went into the classroom and I was so impressed with how my teacher provided instruction, how she managed the classroom. I thought, oh gosh, this will be easy. She had an inclusion classroom, so she had 3 students who had a specific learning disabilities and then 1 student who was on a behavior plan. So I had wrote this, one of the first reading lessons that I had ever written, and I had written it and I said the adaptions were, I will not be making any adjustments for the lesson. This is a new lesson for the week, but my students do these same types of lessons, so they should be aware of how the lesson works, and it should be at their level of learning to begin with. Well, after I had taught this lesson, I had to really go back and reflect. I thought, okay, those 5 students in the back, they were not getting much from what I was saying. These 4 students over here, they were really distracted. And then my 3 students who had specific learning disabilities, I felt like they were not getting what I was teaching them. And then my 1 student who was on a behavior plan, we actually had to have everyone leave the room because she was non-compliant, and then she got really aggressive. And I did not have any supports in place for her. So I then went and I wrote another lesson plan, and I stated those really clear expectations. So I came up with CHAMPS, which is first conversation level. It should be at a 0 or 2. Help, if you need help, raise your hand. Activity, we stood up and we walked over to the target board and we said, this is what we're going to learn today. So I really stated those clear expectations and clear objectives of what they were going to be learning. Movement, there's no reason to be moving around at this time because we had just gotten back from the restroom. And then participation, if we have 100% success, or if we are 100% participating, then we will have success within the classroom. And this is something that my cooperating teacher did, but she did not implement it before every lesson plan because she really didn't need to. So I decided, okay, before every subject, we are going to do this so that they had clear expectations. But I still did not have a plan in place for that student who had behaviors. So that leads me to my second piece of evidence. In my special education practicum at Morley Elementary School, I walked in, and my cooperating teacher, she had 28 students on her caseload, which felt really overwhelming. In small group instruction, we had 6 to 7 students, so I was like, oh, this will be great. It'll be a lot easier than having a whole classroom. Well, each of these students had specific learning disabilities, and they were each on different levels, so it was really hard to manage. And then I had 1 student on a behavior plan who was on a really intense one, and so he would get really aggressive, and again, we would have to evacuate the room. So we came up with a calming box for him. So while I was teaching those 5 students, in the middle of that time, he would get up and go and walk around to his calming box, where there's a timer, and he gets to set that timer for 3 minutes, giving him that responsibility because he is a 5th grader. And then he would check off, oh, this is what I needed today in order to calm down. So that gave him a chance to get up and walk over and take that break that he really needed. And I was okay with him missing that 3 minutes of instruction because before it was 30 minutes of instruction. And then these other 6 students were not getting what they needed. That then leads me into my third piece of evidence. I have 4 pictures that I wanted to show. So we'll go, in my student teaching experience, I was at Arborview Elementary, where we had an inclusion classroom, And in the summer, I was able to go and help out the teacher and to see what we could do to provide the best instruction for our students. And that leads me to what strategies can I use to help my students be successful in the classroom. There were 5 students who had specific learning disabilities, and then 1 student who was on an intense behavior plan again. And so we were like, how can we get our students really engaged, decrease those distractions? And so we implemented flexible seating. And we implemented this very well so that students understood it and they understood what their expectations were. So what we did is we would say, okay, we're going to have whole classroom instruction, and then your independent time, you can go ahead and go into your comfy spots, which is your flexible seating. They were able to choose where they got to sit that day. And then I also was able to implement 1, go to the bathroom, 2 is tissue, 3 is pencil. Instead of always raising your hand, this is I need to go to the bathroom, I need to go to I need to get a pencil. Instead, having those hand signals really decreased those distractions that we were seeing. After that, we came up with a behavior plan for that 1 student. We implemented a token chart, so you get a token for transitioning very well from one place to another, or you get a token for complying with what is being asked of you. This really helped that student within the classroom, but it also helped me to know, okay, I need to be giving him tokens, but I also had enough time to be able to give that instruction and really help that student at the same time. Whereas before, he was distracting the rest of the class, so the rest of the class wasn't getting the instruction that they needed, and he was also not getting that instruction they needed. So the relationship that I found between classroom structures and student learning is vital. There is not going to be any student learning going on if your classroom is not structured the way that students need. This then leads me into synthesizing my project. So I found that the way a classroom is structured has a huge impact on success within students' emotional well-being, intellectual well-being, and academic well-being. And then I also found that some students just need different supports. Not every support is going to work for every student, and so implementing those is really important. My reflection, the way that learning environments are structured is based off of those skills and abilities within the classroom. I've learned so much from my students in being in inclusion classrooms and structuring my environment, the learning environment that students really need. My limitations that I found is managing behaviors can be really difficult. When a classroom has 20 students in the room and 1 student is having a difficult time. So you need to put those supports in place so that you're able to give that whole group instruction and that 1 student or a couple students are still able to be a part of the classroom in the least instructive environment. And I also found not every plan is going to work. You can go from plan to plan to plan. You need to find that one plan that is really going to support that student and help that student learn. And then lastly, flexible seating can be difficult. You have to implement it well, and it has to work with the personality of the teacher, and implementing it well can help your students be more engaged and decrease those distractions and manage the behaviors that you're seeing within your classroom. And so I found that I can structure learning environments based off of my students' needs, and I found that is very, very important to student success. I found that from when I was incompetent to when I approached competency to now where I am competent. My future plans is my short-term goals are to start applying for jobs and receive a job offer. My long-term goals is to apply for master's within my first and second year of teaching so that I can continue my education. And lastly, I will continue to implement structured learning environments as I know it is a key success for my students' learning.